Sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
But a name who I think they need to look into is Byron Leftwich, man.
Be left, no question.
I think Byron should have a legitimate shot. You know,
I don't know why B left name is not on this list.
Yeah,
Byron, and you know what you said last week, Pat, that hit home. The piece is already there. The pieces.
Yes.
That's the Patrick Peterson All Things Covered podcast. I like he just, I don't think he talks 100% openly. I think he's diplomatic in a lot of the things he says, but some of the topics he touches on are really interesting. Like, who should the next head coach of the Vikings be? Mm-hmm. Byron Leftwich, not yet interviewed by the Vikings. And actually on this Feedback Friday Mackey and Judd episode, where we just make the entire show about your questions, comments, complaints, concerns, critiques, whatever it is. A lot of head coaching questions here that we're going to sift through early in this Feedback Friday session. Let's start with this one. Nick Cavisto via the Score North app. You can always send us questions, Score North app. There's a feedback tab, YouTube comment section, Twitter, Instagram. We're even, what are we up to, like 3,000 followers on TikTok now too?
Yeah, we're almost up to 4,000 followers. See the Judd on the TikTok. Judd loves TikTok. We gotta get Judd doing the dances. That's the next evolution of Judd on TikTok.
I agree. Yeah, Judd
choreography,
doing some dancing, some singing. Nick Cavisto via the Score North app says, "Here are the reasons why I'm out on a defensive head coach." And right now, of the 8 candidates that they have or will interview, 5 have a defensive background. Raheem Morris also has an offensive background because he was the wide receivers coach and pass game coordinator in Atlanta for 4 years, so he kind of falls into both bins. But Nick says, number one reason I'm out on a defensive coach, the carousel of offensive coordinators most defensive head coaches go through if they have a good offense. You have a good offense and boom, someone gets hired to be a head coach, right? Number 2, if you look at the teams that are currently winning divisions and making runs at the Super Bowl, they are mostly offensive-minded coaches or have an offensive coordinator like Buffalo that's about to get a head coaching job, Brian Daboll. Mm-hmm. Number 3, most new rules that are being implemented or adjusted are moving toward benefiting offenses, and being able to stop an offense is not really being done consistently anymore, specifically against the quarterbacks that make things happen off schedule, Josh Allen, etc. Mm-hmm. Well, I do agree that leadership is most important to getting a team to buy in to what the coach is saying. Ultimately, what has to happen to win and win big, it's hard to see a league over the next few years where you can go defensive with your head coach and have a consistent offense year over year. Your thoughts?
All great points. So, I don't vehemently disagree with anything that he said in that note. That being said, Raheem Morris intrigues me because I think he gets both sides of the football, and I think that he can lead, and I think that players want to play for a guy like that. And I will say, if your biggest problem is our offense was so good or our playoff run was so long that people are trying to hire my assistant coaches, the flip side is that's a good problem. I think the confusion here is this one. So Shermer left for the Giants job after the 13-3 and run to the conference championship game in 2017. And Stefanski left because, he was a hot young coach. But I think we'd see things differently if, let's say, Norv hadn't walked out in a huff. Let's say Clint Kubiak hadn't been promoted to a job that he didn't belong in. Let's say that Gare had stuck around. So while I understand the concerns, I think that our feeling about OCs in this town is somewhat tainted too, because the upheaval was so consistent, not always caused by success, but also caused by failure or angst. If you find the right head coach, the problem that he writes about is a problem I would be willing, or a risk that I would take, because theoretically your next OC is not going to quit after week 6, and he's not going to be fired with 3 games left, DiFilippo. So I don't think that you should just hire an offensive person because you're afraid if there's success that person, as far as the OC, might walk away.
Yeah, this is pretty simple for me. Ideally you lean offense with a coach. But if someone stands out as a leader, head and shoulders above all else, that is the most important thing. And then you just have to hope that because they're a great leader that they can hire great people and hire an offensive coordinator. And this is why Raheem Morris continues to be really interesting in that he seems to be among the top leadership candidates, and he has all this experience on both sides of the ball. I mean, that Atlanta offense under Dan Quinn, by the way, and this is where a lot of these candidates sort of tie together. Dan Quinn was the head coach. He has Kyle Shanahan as his offensive coordinator and Raheem Morris as his pass game coordinator. And that was an offensively great team that went to the Super Bowl and had a 4-touchdown lead on the Patriots, right? But Dan Quinn was a defensive mind. And so as you sort of pump the tires of Raheem Morris and his offensive background, you also then kind of by extension have to pump the tires of Dan Quinn for putting him in that spot to be a pass game coordinator, right? Mm-hmm. So again, ideally, great leader who's offensive minded. That would be the holy grail. But if you've got a great leader who's head and shoulders above the others, I think you have to lean great leader first and foremost. The next one here is Adam Meyer on the YouTube comment section. Packers fan from Minnesota here, he says. So this is a Packer fan perspective. Nathaniel Hackett, who's the Packers offensive coordinator who's interviewed for the Vikings head coaching job, is about the exact polar opposite of Mike Zimmer. Players like him. He always seems upbeat and positive. I fully expected him to land a job last offseason as a head coach, so I don't expect him to last long on the market this year. The big question is, can he run an offense solo? And I'll just take that and put a question on it. I mean, we talked a lot about Nathaniel Hackett early in the week, and then we've kind of gone through some of the other candidates as well, and we've talked a lot about Raheem Morris. Where do you guys currently stand with Nathaniel Hackett?
I'm intrigued, and I'm intrigued because his experience and success obviously goes back to his stops before the Packers. Because if it was just the Packers, I would be concerned. Like, I'd be like, okay, seems like he's a good guy. Rodgers likes him, but he's also completely at that point on the coattails of one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But the fact that he had success with Blake Bortles in Jacksonville, the fact that he had success with Buffalo long before they were the current Bills juggernaut encourages me. And I do think, here's the thing. I would guard against being so fixated on finding a different person from Zim that it starts to cloud you. But I do think that a person who's going to walk in the first day of training camp and be a breath of fresh air is important. So I would weigh that. But I am much more inclined to give him a chance as a coach based on the fact that his success predates and goes back before he started with Packers.
Yeah, I agree. I think for anyone who's out on Nathaniel Hackett, and I've seen some of these comments that, it's Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers show in Green Bay. Well, yeah, of course it is. But that's not why I would be hiring Nathaniel Hackett. I think the fact that Aaron and David Bakhtiari have both publicly backed Nathaniel Hackett as a great leader, as someone that they love to play for and work with is a credit. But it's the work that he did with these previously garbage teams, Buffalo before Josh Allen and Blake Bortles. I mean, he came in, Blake Bortles was like, on the verge of just being a bust and no longer their quarterback, and they resurrected and went to the NFC Championship game with like a 13-win season, and he made Bortles more efficient. So, all right, is he calling plays right now? No. Has he done this without Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers at a really high level where like they're sustaining success year after year? No. But part of the deal here is if you hire Nathaniel Hackett, you're also like, this is going to sound crazy to Vikings fans, but like you're on the hunt for your Aaron Rodgers. And it's weird, like when we bring that up, like people always kind of scoff, like, well, I mean, you're not just going to find a Pat Mahomes. You're not just going to find a Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Well, I mean, Buffalo did. Kansas City aggressively traded up for Pat Mahomes. I know not every team can have one of those guys, but ideally you would be bringing in an offensive-minded coach and hunting for a top 6 quarterback that you can groom and have as your franchise guy for a decade, right?
And what you have to do is, and this is the toughest part, is you have to sort out the guys who have also obtained knowledge and can share it through what a guy like Hackett has gone through with Rodgers, LaFleur, smart team. But what you need to guard against is he's not Ben McAdoo, right? Because like that, the same stuff with Ben. Like he's going to go to the Giants. He's been around Rodgers. Rodgers likes him.
Yeah.
This is going to be great.
Matt
and it was a
Nagy kind of a
disaster.
similar thing.
Exactly. So that's where your people in the Zooms right now have to sort of be like, yeah, you know what? That's a smart dude. He gets it. He knows a lot. He can help. Or he's been around it, but I don't think he's absorbed it much.
I worked at Google. It was great. Okay,
Exactly.
did you create the search bar?
You want to be in charge of my upstart website, Phil?
Yeah. Did you build the algorithm? Okay, then we can talk.
Yeah, that's an issue.
Yeah, I like Nathaniel Hackett a lot. I think in general there's probably a fraction of Vikings fans who see him as a Packers guy and they want nothing to do with him, which is
get outta
just
here
as
with
garbage,
that. Oh my
which I
God.
can't stand. I literally can't
cares?
stand that.
Yeah.
I just go watch his press conference that he had right after the regular season when he was also just talking about these interviews too, and I think it's really insightful. He just and it could have been a show, could have been just him on a really good day. You know, I don't know what he's like behind the scenes, and I don't know if maybe he's still a rah-rah football guy. I'm guessing he is when it's football time, but he just doesn't seem like a get in your face and I'm going to rip you a new one or I'm smarter and better than you attitude that kind of Mike Zimmer polarized during his tenure as Vikings head coach. And I think Hackett could be kind of a breath of fresh air and guy who has a collaboration that this team is looking for and needs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like this I'm glad you brought this up because I've seen a lot of this too. It's just if we hire a Packers coordinator and have success, we're never going to hear the end of it from Packers fans. Who cares? Once Aaron Rodgers is gone, they're going to go into an 8-year desolate stretch of quarterback play for the first time since the 80s. It doesn't matter what Packer fans think. Just hire the best coach and go win games.
If these
and
guys
the rest
win,
will take care of itself.
If these guys win, no one will give a damn.
In fact, it'll be even more hilarious and a more hilarious troll job to say, oh, yeah, it looks like you guys let one go there and the Vikings took advantage, right? I mean, if the Vikings would have won a Super Bowl with Brett Favre, can you imagine how epic it would have been to hold that over your Packer family members,
number 4
friends
in purple,
for decades?
Raised to the rafters first
Yes.
before the Packers got their chance. That was always my dream. Because the Packer
Hilarious,
fan,
dude.
I think if Favre had won a Super Bowl here, my question has always been this: would Packers fans have forgiven him? Because
No.
like that's gone now, right? Like the whole it got ugly and nasty. That's all gone now. If he hoists the Lombardi Trophy in purple, is Brett Favre persona non grata to this day at Lambeau Field?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think it's like the last flame on the bridge as it crumbles to the ground.
God, it would have been great.
Yeah, because it would have been what 12 years later at this point. I don't know that
And
they
one
would have
with each
recovered
team.
from that.
Yeah, and one with each. That's the best part.
And his last one here, and oh my God, it would have been so delicious.
And of course, I don't know if irony is the right word, but the poetic justice of it all is Brett Favre's own inherent flaws as a quarterback prevented Brett Favre from winning a Super Bowl with the Vikings. And the Packers now, because of that, get to celebrate Favre for all the greatness and all of his
And it's like he never played
charming
here.
flaws.
It's like he never played a game here.
I know.
I just like talk about the Packers.
Yep.
Brett, you're a Viking.
Even Brett kind of
Oh, he's forgotten.
he doesn't really talk about his Vikings here.
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
Mike T via the Score North app. Guys, love all your content for us aspirational Vikings fans. Thanks, Mike. A question for Judd. You repeatedly express concerns about certain head coach candidates who have never called plays. Why do you think this is important? My opinion is one of Zimmer's biggest downfalls was he was too focused on calling defensive plays, leading to failures in other areas of leadership. I don't think Bud Grant called his own plays, or really any old school coaches, did they? That's a long time ago.
That's
Kind
a
of
long time ago, and the game has changed a lot since then.
And he continues, although the NFL seems to have trended this way, is it for the best? I look at a guy like the interim coach in Las Vegas, who was a special teams coordinator. They elevated him after Gruden got fired. He didn't call plays. It looks like he might actually hold the job because of ringing endorsements from his players. A good leader of men should be able to delegate those responsibilities and have his finger on the pulse of the game, manage timeouts, and the overall flow. Talking to his players during the game, like Pete Carroll does, would be nice too. Shouldn't the OC and DC handle the in-game play calling? Some interesting.
That's very, very
points here.
fair. That so my concern about guys that have not called plays is I like I like a coach who has the knowledge of having gone through that step, but I don't disagree. If you feel, and this is an attribute, that your OC and DC can do a good job calling plays, let them. Like I love the idea, because it's so important now, of a head coach who manages the actual game, the clock, the timeouts. Oh my God. But that being said, I also like the idea of a coach who has called plays, because it just adds another layer of coaching contextual context to you and what you know. So I guess I'm trying to say it's from more experience, and the more experiences that you have in a game that, compared to like when Bud coached, it's a different sport. Like there's so much more now.
Yeah.
So, but
they didn't even have headsets when Bud coached, did
Yeah.
they?
They might have at the end, but they didn't for a long time. But I love that point. Like, I do think the ideal would be to get coordinators on both sides of the football who you're in such lockstep with and comfortable with that they can call plays. I just like it when a coach has done that, because it helps me say, okay, that's an important life experience as far as coaching goes.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, and again, this is just one example, but the best example of this is John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh, and he was a special teams coordinator. He didn't call offensive or defensive plays when he got that job. And Greg Roman is their offensive play caller now in Baltimore. And he is brilliant at being able, like, he's got his, like, game management assistant and sidekick right on the sidelines with him or in his ear.
Love it.
And he's constantly thinking about, okay, we got 3 minutes left. If we get down here, are we going to go for it? Do we have enough time? Or what's our timeout situation? And you can, while the game is happening, you can watch him going up and down the sidelines. Okay, talking to his quarterback over here, talking to an assistant coach over there, and he's now they missed the playoffs this year because they had like 25 guys on IR or something. But
right,
I would love it if you had a head coach that was that great of a leader. It's kind of the opposite of what's happening in Dallas, where Mike McCarthy doesn't call offensive or defensive plays, and his team is apparently, to steal a word from him, nervous before a wild card playoff game, and train wrecks in the 2-minute drill all the time because they have no idea what they're doing. Right?
Yeah,
it's like, great. So Mike's going to free himself up. He doesn't have to call plays, and he can focus on the big things, and he drops the ball all the time, which is why he should be fired. But John Harbaugh is a great example of the opposite. So. I don't know, like calling plays, I don't think it should be anywhere near like your top 3 priorities for a coach, but I agree with Judd.
But it helps. Yeah.
It does help, just like sort of speeding things up and understanding the flow. Speaking of Dallas, Colin Leary via the Score North app asks, how does the perspective of Kellen Moore change if Dak Prescott gets that spike off and then throws a touchdown to tie the game?
It's completely different. We're literally talking about wanting Kellen Moore more. That's where I'm saying we can't just have like this ridiculous overreaction over the one play. The draw play is worth criticism, because obviously that's been the topic of conversation for the last 5 days. But then if he pulls that off, well, what are we talking about now? Are we still talking about him having the number 1 offense and being the smart, innovative dude? And oh my God, he just marched down the field with 40 seconds, no timeouts, and daggered a good defense. I think sometimes we just get really caught up in the moment of one thing, and we have to kind of examine the whole big picture of who Kellen Moore is, and that's what teams, I think, are trying to figure out.
So here's my take on this. I think, yes, if they get the spike off and they throw a touchdown, like there's no heat on Kellen Moore. In fact, it's going to be praise, right? They came back and they won the game, etc. But to me, the equivalent, if I could use like a comparison, it's like if someone told you you have an appointment and you have to be there at noon, and if you don't, then you're, I don't know, you die. You're eliminated from the playoffs. Like, you have an appointment at noon and you have to be there at noon. No excuses, because the clock's ticking. And Kellen Moore looks at his maps. He's got his iPhone out, opens up the Apple Maps, and says, "All right, it's 11:40, and great. It takes exactly 20 minutes to get there. Okay, I'll leave now." Not considering the things that could go wrong if you leave yourself no margin for error. What if you get stuck at a long stoplight? What if there's a crash on the highway or something, right? Like, there's like 5 things that could happen, so you need to give yourself some cushion. Maybe you should leave 10 minutes early. And that's what bothered me about it. It was like they gave no thought to the bad things that could happen. What if the official what if the official bobbles the ball when they're trying to spot it? What if this? What if that? Like, what if a defensive player lays on Dak Prescott while he's trying to get up, and that's an extra 2 seconds? Like, there was no thought to the bad things that could happen. It was only like, we can do this in 14 seconds. So obviously, if they get the spike off, no one's talking about that. So yes, the perception would be different if they would have got the spike off.
So I think Dex is right on fans and probably the majority of people in our business. I think anyone who is a real football person would say, that's a terrible call still. Like it doesn't absolve you internally with football people. When the rule of thumb that everybody knows, right, Phil? 17 seconds. Got to have that. If you run that play and get lucky and get that ball spiked, I think we're all like, oh, that was really cool. But I think football people are like, that's a bad play call. That's a terrible play call. It's still terrible.
I still think, and I think the analytics would bear this out too, from where they were at the 40-yard line, I still think 2 Hail Marys gives you a better chance to win than
or a sideline pass, though.
A play of some kind.
But if you want to get closer, like let's say you're like, it's too far. We can't do this. We got to be at the 25 or something, okay? The only other play call is a sideline play call that gets the ball out of bounds. Or it stops the clock.
But San Francisco is literally, and that's where it wasn't trying to be hilarious football nerd, but they're in the picket fence coverage. You can see 3 DBs on each side of the sidelines. They were literally saying, you will not pass the ball to us
then
on the sidelines.
You got to launch it. Then you
go Hail Mary. Then you have to go Hail Mary.
Exactly right.
And you think about that, like San Francisco said, because everyone's like the people that are praising the play are saying it worked. They just didn't get the spike off. It's like, no, it didn't work.
It was terribly flawed.
So I don't know.
But
maybe we're overreacting to one play, but I also look at all these other candidates with more experience. I just feel like Kellen Moore needs 5 more minutes as a coordinator, and then at some point he'll be
probably
a head
is.
coach.
So did you guys see? And I think it was not on TV. I think it was to a reporter. Aikman's quote, though.
Yes,
he had a brilliant.
That was even
quote.
more damning.
And this is, but this is where I have a problem with Moore, and quite frankly, it translates perfect to Kubiak. Why?
Yes.
Why do all of these people like? And I get football is complicated. I get it's got a lot of complicated play calls and that. And I am not debating that. But why do these people insist on making an already sort of complicated schematics more complicated?
So Aikman, for the audience that didn't see it, he was talking about the Dallas Niners game, right?
Yes, and the whole game.
He was also talking about, I think he brought it up for a different game too, but basically like when the cornerbacks are giving, for CeeDee Lamb, for instance, when the cornerbacks are like 8-10 yards off the line of scrimmage, stop trying to scheme your offense. Throw the ball to CeeDee Lamb.
Right.
Literally run a curl route and throw the ball to CeeDee Lamb.
Correct.
And he was like, I hate to go back to my day because no one cares. But he goes, but if that were us in the 90s and we saw a defense playing 8 to 10 yards off Michael Irvin would have 10 catches in the first half. We would literally abandon like all game plan, scheme, everything, and just say, oh, I guess they're playing 10 yards off Michael Irvin. Cool. Right?
Right.
So, yeah.
I just don't get that.
I rewatched Kellen Moore's John Gruden football camp from 2012 coming out of Boise State yesterday. It's on ESPN. It's great. Actually, Boise State's like football page uploaded it and even like has a DVR skipper on it because they couldn't get the commercials out. It's hilarious trying to watch them navigate it. But one of the biggest things that Gruden picks out from Moore at Boise State is Boise State's offense is complicated and it's different. And they put right guards like off the line of scrimmage and they put tight ends and tackle spots and they get it all extra complicated. And Kellen Moore says, our goal is to confuse the defense as much as possible. That's our goal at Boise State, was to confuse the defense as much as possible.
So he probably brings a lot of those principles.
And I think he still brings a lot of those principles to it. And that's what Gruden says at the end. Like, I don't know if this guy's going to make it as a quarterback. I don't, because he just doesn't have the athletic abilities, but he's going to make one hell of a coach someday.
And
that's great.
Your own team.
And that's, like, I think having some components of, like, you're a brilliant schemer and whatnot, but if there's something in front of you. Did John Gruden ask him about the blue turf?
He did, yeah, because he asked if
playing on that blue turf, man.
Is it true that ducks kill themselves on that turf thinking it's a lake? He asked that question. I didn't know that was a thing. And Kellen Moore was
they dive down.
Yeah. Kellen Moore said, we've heard the rumor, but like I've never seen it happen, you know, and also like they're practicing on there. So like a duck's not going to like see people and then like go towards it. But he did ask if ducks like basically kamikaze into the field before.
Oh my God. Robert Wolf via the Score North app says, it's great to hear all the back and forth with your young listeners, but I am concerned that the young listeners have shiny new object syndrome as a crotchety 72-year-old Vikings fan who is a fan of Surly Furious, he says.
Oh, that's my guy.
Thank you. Good.
Glad you
In my humble opinion, the best chance of finding a successful new employee is by hiring someone who did that same job well with a different company. I feel that these next hot OCs often flame out when they become head coaches. See Kevin Stefanski's second year, for example, which, you know, I want to see Kevin a third year to determine that. But if you can find a coach that's been to a Super Bowl, they have a good chance of getting there again. Think Doug Peterson, Dan Quinn, if Pete Carroll becomes available. Even Jim Harbaugh, who knows how to pick and groom quarterbacks. Better yet, he's part of a family that's produced winning coaches. What are your thoughts on that? The old, like, because I feel like a lot of people are just kind of casting aside Peterson and Quinn. No, let's go Kellen Moore.
Right.
He's young. He's flashy.
I think it's probably a smart move to look at both sides here. And I don't think that you can dismiss or embrace one because, well, that's just what I like. So I get his point. I don't disagree with the point, but I also don't think that you can eliminate potentially good candidates because they don't have head coaching experience, because if you do that, you're basically taking away an entire pool in which some very successful people are probably swimming. So this is where you have to rely on the Vikings people. Like, you literally have to, again, Ben McAdoo, who basically was more high school gym coach than a coach in the National Football League.
Didn't he have a weird mustache at one point?
Yes, he looked like a gym coach. Ben McAdoo, though, was the Nathaniel Hackett of 4 or 5 years back. Oh my God, he works with Rodgers. He works with the Packers. He knows he knows what they do. He knows, and he was a flop. So this is where you have to put trust in your people with your team to see through the BS and to also see the intangibles that people have. So that's what makes this tough, man.
Dude, Ben McAdoo. So he was, meteoric rise guy, right? He was in his 30s. He was Aaron Rodgers' quarterbacks coach. Then he became the offensive coordinator for the Giants, and they elevated him to head coach.
Yep.
And then he took, I think, 2 years off after getting fired to become the Jaguars' quarterbacks coach last year.
Oh, was he really? Oh, I didn't even know he resurfaced.
So now he's a consultant for the Cowboys, not for Urban. I mean 2020.
Oh, you mean okay.
Yeah. And now he's a consultant for the Cowboys.
That's the job I want.
So, yeah.
I want a consultant's job.
We know.
Don't you? Consulting's the way to go, man. You make a lot.
I mean, we're pretty much consultants now.
You make I want the check, though, that goes along with the job. Like, I give my advice essentially for free to the Vikings.
You know what we could do? Like, it's possible there's some people in that front office that don't watch Purple Daily or listen to Purple Daily. What if we just started sending clips of our advice that we give on the show, and we could send it as a demo tape and say, listen, if you want, we can send this to you like Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. We'll give you our takes. You just have to write us a check. We can double dip with the content that we're providing.
It's a great idea.
Just throwing it out there.
I've heard rumblings that we are watched by some.
Really?
Yeah, I can't say too much more.
Sure.
But let's just say I think PD, I think it gets a little bit of run at TCL.
I will say it was a little suspicious that on Purple Daily for the last 2 years we've been talking about how our motto, our tagline is, we want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. And Mark Wilf fires everyone and comes out and says, there you go, someday. And Mark Wilf comes out and says, championship Super Bowl. The status quo is not good enough. It just feels aligned. Like our visions.
Oh, they're very much aligned.
What I'm saying.
They're very much aligned. Yep. Yeah. We might be big in Jersey too, if that's the case.
Let's shout out Federated here real quick here. Feedback Friday. Federated's been around for over 100 years, based in Owatonna, and Federated Insurance provides risk management tools and resources to business owners. And so, there's a lot of young business owners that dabble in Mackey and Judd and Purple Daily. So if you're a young business owner, definitely listen up. You can get that experienced veteran guiding hand of Federated to help maximize the success of your business. Find out more at federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it is our business to protect yours.